Lecture Soul, God and Religion, Part 2. In the New Testament, it is taught, Our Father who art in heaven, God living in the heavens, separated from men. We are living on earth and He is living in heaven. Further on, we find the teaching that He is a God eminent in nature. He is not only God in heaven but on earth too. He is the God in us. In the Hindu philosophy, we find a stage of the same proximity of God to us. But we do not stop there. There is the non-dualistic stage in which man realizes that the God he has been worshipping is not only the Father in heaven and on earth, but that I and my Father are one. He realizes in his soul that he is God himself, only a lower expression of him. All that is real in me is he. All that is real in him is I. The gulf between God and man is thus bridged. Thus we find how, by knowing God, we find the kingdom of heaven within us. In the first or dualistic stage, man knows he is a little personal soul, John, James or Tom, and he says, I will be John, James or Tom to all eternity and never anything else. As well might the murderer come along and say, I will remain a murderer forever. But as time goes on, Tom vanishes and goes back to the original pure Adam. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Can we see God? Of course not. Can we know God? Of course not. If God can be known, He will be God no longer. Knowledge is limitation. But I and my Father are one. I find the reality in my soul. These ideas are expressed in some religions and in others only hinted. In some they are expatriated. Christ's teachings are now very little understood in this country. If you will excuse me, I will say that they have never been very well understood. The different stages of growth are absolutely necessary to the attainment of purity and perfection. The varying systems of religion are at bottom founded on the same ideas. Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is within you. Again he says, Our Father who art in heaven. How do you reconcile the two sayings? In this way. He was talking to the uneducated masses when he said the latter, the masses who were uneducated in religion. It was necessary to speak to them in their own language. The masses want concrete ideas, something the senses can grasp. A man may be the greatest philosopher in the world, but a child in religion. When a man has developed a high state of spirituality, he can understand that the kingdom of heaven is within him. That is the real kingdom of the mind. Thus we see that the apparent contraindications and perplexities in every religion mark but different stages of growth. And as such, we have no right to blame anyone for his religion. There are stages of growth in which forms and symbols are necessary. They are the language that the souls in that stage can understand. The next idea that I want to bring to you is that religion does not consist in doctrines or dogmas. It is not what you read, nor what dogmas you believe that is of importance, but what you realize. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, in this life. And that is salvation. There are those who teach that this can be gained by the mumbling of words, but no great master ever taught that external forms were necessary for salvation. The power of attaining it is within ourselves. We live and move in God. Creeds and sections have their parts to play, but they are for children. They last but temporarily. Books never make religions, but religions make books. We must not forget that. No book ever created God, but God inspired all the great books, and no book ever created a soul. We must never forget that. The end of all religions is the realizing of God in the soul. That is the one universal religion. If there is one universal truth in all religions, I place it here in realizing God. Ideals and methods may differ, but that is the central point. There may be 1,000 different radii, but they all converge to the one center, and that is the realization of God. something behind this world of sense, this world of eternal eating and drinking and talking nonsense, this world of false shadows and selfishness. There is that beyond all books, beyond all creeds, beyond the vanities of this world, and it is the realization of God within yourself. A man may believe in all the churches in the world. He may carry in his head all the sacred books ever written. He may baptize himself in all the rivers of the earth. Still, if he has no perception of God, I would class him with the rankest atheist. And a man may never have entered a church or a mosque nor performed any ceremony, but if he feels God within himself and is thereby lifted above the vanities of the world, that man is a holy man, a saint. Call him what you will. As soon as a man stands up and says he is right or his church is right and all others are wrong, he is himself all wrong. He does not know that upon the proof of all the others depends the proof of his own. Love and charity for the whole human race, that is the test of true religiousness. I do not mean the sentimental statement that all men are brothers, but that one must feel the oneness of human life. So far as they are not exclusive, I see that the sections and creeds are all mine, they are all grand. They are all helping men towards the real religion. I will add, it is good to be born in a church, but it is bad to die there. It is good to be born a child, but bad to remain a child. Churches, ceremonies, and symbols are good for children, but when a child is grown, he must burst the church or himself. We must not remain children forever. It is like trying to fit one coat to all sizes and growths. I do not deprecate the existence of sections in the world. Would to God there were 20 million more, for the more there are, there will be a greater field for selection. What I do object to is trying to fit one religion to every case. Though all religions are essentially the same, they must have the varieties of form produced by dissimilar circumstances among different nations. We must each have our own individual religion, individual so far as the externals of it go. Many years ago, I visited a great sage of our own country, a very holy man. We talked of our revealed book, the Vedas, of your Bible, of the Quran, and of revealed books in general. At the close of our talk, this good man asked me to go to the table and pick up a book. It was a book which, among other things, contained a forecast of the rainfall during the year. The sage said, "Read that." And I read out the quantity of rain that was to fall. He said, "Now take the book and squeeze it." I did so, and he said, "Why, my boy, not a drop of water comes out? Until the water comes out, it is all book. So until your religion makes you realize God, it is useless." He who only studies books for religion reminds one of the fables of the ass which carried a heavy load of sugar on his back, but did not know the sweetness of it. Shall we advise men to kneel down and cry, "O miserable sinners that we are"? No, rather, let us remind them of their divine nature. I will tell you a story. A lioness in search of prey came upon a flock of sheep, and as she jumped at one of them, she gave birth to a cub and died on the spot. The young lion was brought up in the flock, ate grass, and bleated like a sheep, and it never knew that it was a lion. One day a lion came across the flock and was astonished to see in it a huge lion eating grass and bleating like a sheep. At his side the flock fled, and the lion sheep with them. But the lion watched his opportunity and one day found the lion sheep asleep. He woke him up and said, "You are a lion." The other said, "No," and began to bleat like a sheep. But the stranger lion took him to a lake and asked him to look in the water at his own image and see if it did not resemble him, the stranger lion. He looked and acknowledged that it did. Then the strange lion began to roar and asked him to do the same. The lion sheep tried his voice and was soon roaring as grandly as the other, and he was a sheep no longer. My friends, I would like to tell you all that you are mighty as lions. If the room is dark, you do not go about beating your chest and crying, "It is dark, dark, dark." No, the only way to get the light is to strike a light, and then the darkness goes. The only way to realize the light above you is to strike the spiritual light within you, and the darkness of sin and impurity will flee away. Think of your higher self, not of your lower. Some questions and answers here followed. Question. A man in the audience said, if ministers stop preaching hellfire, they will have no control over their people. Answer. They had better lose it then. The man who is frightened into religion has no religion at all. Better teach him of his divine nature than of his animal. Question. What did the Lord mean when he said, the kingdom of heaven is not of this world? Answer. That the kingdom of heaven is within us. Jewish idea was the kingdom of heaven upon this earth. That was not the idea of Jesus. Question. Do you believe we come up from the animals? Answer. I believe that by the law of evolution, the higher beings have come up from the lower kingdoms. Question. Do you know of anyone who remembers his previous life? Answer. I have met some who told me that they did remember their previous life. They had reached a point where they could remember their former incarnations. Question. Do you believe in Christ's crucifixion? Answer. Christ was God incarnate. They could not kill him. That which was crucified was only a semblance, a mirage. Question. If he could have produced such a semblance as that, would not that have been the biggest miracle of all? Answer. I look upon miracles as the greatest stumbling blocks in the way of truth. When the disciples of Buddha told him of a man who had performed a so-called miracle, had taken a bowl from a great height without touching it and showed him the bowl, he took it and crushed it under his feet and told them never to build their faith on miracles, but to look for truth in everlasting principles. He taught them that the true inner light, the light of the Spirit, which is the only safe light to go by. Miracles are only stumbling blocks. Let us brush them aside. Question. Do you believe Jesus preached the Sermon on the Mount? Answer. I do believe he did. But in this matter, I have to go by the books as others do, and I am aware that mere book testimony is rather shaky ground. But we are all safe in taking the teachings of the Sermon on the Mount as a guide. We have to take what appeals to our inner spirit. Buddha taught 500 years before Christ, and his words were full of blessings. Never a curse came from his lips, nor from his life, never one from Zoroaster, nor from Confucius.